The story begins with our MC, Tsubaki, waking up looking like life just hit him with a 1v3. He's completely exhausted, and there's a good reason for it. His love life is basically a complete disaster. He's trapped in a love triangle with his two childhood friends. Tsubaki is deeply in love with Himawari, but unfortunately, she's completely in love with Aota. At school, Himawari suddenly grabs Tsubaki and drags him away to have lunch together. Since they're now in their final year of middle school, Tsubaki can't help but panic internally. To him, eating lunch alone with a girl feels way too suspicious. Himawari, however, doesn't think anything of it. She's simply treating it as normal because they've been childhood friends for so long. As they sit together, Tsubaki tries his best to stay calm, but he's barely holding himself together. Himawari, meanwhile, is completely relaxed. She smiles, laughs, and enjoys even the smallest things, which makes her seem like the main character of the story. To Tsubaki, she's something truly precious, like a rare treasure that can never be replaced. But then reality quickly brings him back down. Himawari starts complaining about Aota, saying he's been acting mean lately because he hasn't been joining them for lunch, even though the three of them promised they would always eat together. Apparently, Aota has been busy spending time with other people. And just as they're talking about him, Aota suddenly appears. Acting completely casual, he apologizes for being late. The moment Himawari sees him, her entire mood changes. Aota says it's nice to have lunch with just the three of them again, before pulling out some bread as an apology. Himawari becomes excited because it reminds her of how they used to share food when they were younger. Just like they always did, Uta splits the bread between them. However, Tsubaki quickly notices something. Uta gives the biggest piece to Himawari, making her eyes light up with happiness, while Tsubaki receives the smaller piece. Uta always tries to divide things fairly, but somehow, Himawari always ends up with the better share. Uta then turns to Tsubaki and asks for his advice. He explains that other students keep inviting him to have lunch with them, but he really wants to spend his lunch break with Tsubaki and Himawari. He even reveals that some girls practically dragged him away earlier. Hearing this, Himawari blushes, clearly happy to hear that Aota wants to spend time with them. It's easy to see why Aota is so popular. He's excellent at both academics and sports, and he's one of the most well-liked students in school. Aota then pulls his friends closer and honestly tells them that he'd rather spend lunch with Tsubaki and Himawari. Himawari blushes even more while Tsubaki quietly watches her reaction. Seeing how happy she is around Aota only makes Tsubaki feel more inferior. Wanting to help, Tsubaki comes up with a compromise. He tells Aota that he can keep having lunch with them, but after school. He should spend some time with his other friends. Completely rejecting everyone else wouldn't be fair. Aota happily agrees, but there's one problem. If he spends time with his friends after school, the three of them won't be able to walk home together. So Aota asks Tsubaki to take Himawari home instead. Tsubaki is caught completely off guard. Aota is suddenly trusting him with Himawari without even thinking twice. Tsubaki hesitates, but Aota clearly has complete faith in him. Himawari also agrees, although she looks slightly embarrassed by the situation. And just like that, the plan is decided. Tsubaki goes along with it, even though he never imagined his life would end up like this. Before he can think much about it, Oda's friends arrive and complain about him disappearing again. Apparently, having lunch with Tsubaki and Himawari has become such a regular habit that everyone notices when he's gone. Still, his friends want him to join them, so Oda quickly solves the problem by inviting everyone to karaoke after school. Everyone immediately gets excited. Aota confidently boasts about how good his singing is, only for his friends to make fun of him moments later. Himawari watches the whole scene with admiration. She remembers how Aota used to be small and shy when they were younger. Tsubaki, however, can only stand there and face the painful truth. Aota has Himawari's complete attention. Yeah, bro is losing in 4K. But then Tsubaki remembers something that gives him a little hope. Today he gets to walk home with Himawari. No Aota, no interruptions, no third wheel. For once, he gets her all to himself, and he's more than happy to take that small victory. On the way home, the two walk side by side, almost like a couple. Tsubaki is nervous, but he desperately tries to start a conversation. He calls out to Himawari, but she doesn't respond. She's completely lost in her own thoughts. The moment Tsubaki mentions Aota, however, she immediately snaps back. Just hearing his name is enough to get her attention. Trying not to let it bother him, Tsubaki smiles and suggests that next time, the three of them should bring something to eat so they can share it like they always have. Himawari happily agrees and even calls Tsubaki by his nickname. Tsubaki acts like it's no big deal, but inside, he's completely melting. Just as they're about to part ways, Himawari suddenly grabs his shirt and thanks him with a bright smile. That simple gesture hits Tsubaki harder than he expected. His heart starts racing, and for a moment he moves closer to her. That's when he finally admits the truth to himself. He loves her. For a brief moment, Tsubaki nearly acts on his feelings. Maybe he could hug her. Maybe he could confess. But reality suddenly catches up with him. He freezes, panics, and quickly backs away. After apologizing, he runs home as fast as he can. The moment he gets inside, he slams the door and finally lets his emotions take over. He realizes that if he keeps chasing Himawari, he could destroy something precious between the three of them. Deep down, Tsubaki has always known the truth. He just refused to accept it because he was holding on to false hope. Now, he finally makes his decision. He can't be the person who takes Himawari away from Ota. Instead, he'll be the person who brings the two of them together. The next morning, Himawari leaves her house and is surprised to find Tsubaki waiting outside for her. He rarely waits for her like this, so she immediately becomes curious. But Tsubaki looks unusually serious. He tells her there's something important he wants to talk about, and the mood instantly changes. After gathering his courage, Tsubaki tells her that he wants the two people most precious to him to be happy. Himawari freezes. She tries to pretend she doesn't understand what he's talking about, but she's already nervous because she knows exactly where this conversation is going. And she isn't wrong. Tsubaki already knows how she feels. He gently tells her that he knows she likes Ota as more than just a friend. Himawari struggles to deny it, but she can't really hide her feelings anymore. Tsubaki then explains that he's been watching the two of them for a long time. He remembers how Ota used to be small and weak and how hard he worked to become a better person. He saw all of it, and somewhere along the way, Himawari began seeing Ota differently too. She's surprised that Tsubaki noticed all these little details. Still, Tsubaki keeps going and asks her if she's okay with him helping them. Himawari hesitates, but because it's Tsubaki asking, she eventually agrees. Her heart races as she finally gathers enough courage to say the words out loud. She admits that she has always liked Ota. Tsubaki keeps a calm expression, but inside he's taking massive emotional damage. Even so, he thanks her for being honest and promises that he'll help make her feelings come true. Bro really woke up early just to help the girl he loves get together with someone else. Later at school, Tsubaki goes out of his way to find Ota in his classroom. Ota is surprised to see him there since Tsubaki almost never visits his class. Without wasting any time, Tsubaki calls out to him and asks him to have lunch together. Just the two of them. That alone feels suspicious. Even Ota is confused and immediately asks about Himawari, but Tsubaki calmly explains that he already got her permission because he wants to talk about some guy stuff. They sit at their usual spot. The place feels nostalgic, but there's also a strange tension between them. After a brief silence, Tsubaki gets straight to the point. He asks Ota if he's ever thought about dating someone. Ota is instantly shocked. He clearly wasn't expecting that question at all. Tsubaki explains that Ota is popular, so if he ever became interested in someone, it could affect their group and they would need to be considerate of everyone. But instead of agreeing, Ota immediately shuts the idea down. He says dating someone is impossible and asks why Tsubaki is suddenly bringing this up. Tsubaki tries to play it off, saying he was only curious. But then he adds that having a girlfriend might actually make things easier for Ota. That only makes the conversation more awkward. Ota clearly doesn't like where this is going and calls it a bad idea. He insists that he has no interest in dating anyone. For him, the most important thing is the time the three of them spend together. Even having a girlfriend sounds like more trouble than it's worth. But Tsubaki doesn't give up. He asks one more question. If having a girlfriend wasn't a hassle, would Ota consider dating someone? The question hits a little too close to home, and Ota becomes visibly nervous. Before he can give a proper answer, Tsubaki suddenly gets up and walks away with confidence. He already knows what he needs to do next. And just like that, he leaves Ota behind with the most confusing question ever. Ota is left sitting there, wondering what just happened. Tsubaki then starts talking to Uta's friends, trying to find out how they would react if Uta started dating someone. The girls admit they might feel a little jealous. Others are more relaxed about it, saying they wouldn't mind as long as Uta still spent time with them. Even the boys support the idea. They joke that if Uta got a girlfriend, it might finally stop him from stealing every girl's attention. At this point, everyone starts getting suspicious of Tsubaki. He's acting completely different from his usual quiet self, and they begin wondering what he's really planning. Tsubaki doesn't try to hide it. He simply admits that he wants to turn something he's been wishing for into reality. Later, when he meets Ota again, Ota immediately calls him out. He realizes that Tsubaki has been talking to everyone about him. It's obvious now that Tsubaki is serious. Without backing down, Tsubaki admits that Ota has probably already noticed Himawari's feelings too, and he wants the two of them to get together. Ota is shocked and asks Tsubaki if he's really okay with that. Tsubaki forces himself to say yes, trying to convince both Ota and himself that this is what he wants. Then he grabs Ota and declares that this would be the happiest outcome possible. His two most important childhood friends becoming a couple. On the outside, Tsubaki smiles, but inside, he's falling apart. He grips Ota tightly, as if letting go would make everything real. Still, he forces himself to focus on what matters most. He wants the three of them to keep spending time together, and he trusts Ota to take care of Himawari's feelings. Deep down, Tsubaki knows his own feelings are only getting in the way. He believes Ota is the one who can truly make Himawari happy. So he pushes his feelings aside. Ota understands what Tsubaki is asking and accepts the responsibility before leaving. Tsubaki stays behind alone, heartbroken and exhausted, barely managing to hold himself together. The next day, he goes to Himawari's house. She's surprised and a little flustered, but Tsubaki reassures her without saying much. He encourages her to meet Ota at the park. Himawari immediately beams with happiness. She thanks him and heads toward Ota, while Tsubaki remains frozen behind, silently struggling with his own emotions. From a distance, he watches the two of them together. Himawari's face is flushed as she finally opens her heart to Ota. Meanwhile, Ota listens with a seriousness Tsubaki has never seen from him before. Eventually, the two of them embrace. They've officially become a couple. Tsubaki quietly returns to his room alone. Once he's there, he cries into his pillow, forcing himself to believe that Himawari's happiness is what truly matters, even if it means breaking his own heart. The next morning, Tsubaki wakes up unsure if he even managed to sleep. The familiar pain of seeing Himawari and Ota together still weighs on him. But this time, his determination is stronger. He grabs his phone and realizes something. This is the 12th time he's gone through the same loop. He's frustrated, exhausted, and confused, but he refuses to give up. This time, he decides to see things through and hopes the ending will finally become the one he truly wants. Later that day at school, everything looks completely normal. The teacher starts the class by reminding everyone about their upcoming midterms before taking attendance like it's an ordinary morning. Tsubaki responds normally, but inside nothing feels normal. He realizes the date is May 7th again. The same starting point, the same loop. From May 7th to May 13th, he's been forced to relive the exact same week over and over again, and he still has no idea why. As the lesson continues, his thoughts spiral. He doesn't know why this is happening. He has no idea what causes the reset or how to escape it. He's been searching for an answer since the very first loop, but nothing has changed. Then the bell rings. Just like every other time, Himawari grabs Tsubaki and pulls him along for lunch. Everything happens exactly as he remembers. She drags him forward with her usual energy while Tsubaki awkwardly complains about how embarrassing it is for a boy and girl to eat together during their final year of middle school. Himawari brushes it off as usual and teases him for being shy. And that's when it hits him again. No matter what he says or does, the day continues to repeat itself. Bro is officially trapped in the loop. As they eat lunch, Tsubaki sits quietly with a heavy mind. One thought keeps repeating in his head. There has to be a trigger for the reset. He's already tried changing things countless times, hoping one small difference would break the cycle. But nothing works. Every path leads him back to the same result. Himawari calls out to him, but Tsubaki remains lost in his thoughts. Then she suddenly leans close to his face. That snaps him back instantly, and he becomes flustered. Trying to hide it, he brings up Ota's absence. But Himawari senses that something is wrong. She genuinely wants to help and can't ignore it if Tsubaki is struggling with something. Before he can properly answer, the timing hits perfectly. Auta arrives, just like he does in every loop. Himawari immediately lights up when she sees him, and the entire atmosphere changes. Tsubaki tries to act normal and brings up the bread. Ota is already aware of what brought him there, so he looks surprised for a moment before playing it off. Himawari excitedly explains everything, telling Tsubaki how Ota felt bad about being late, brought the bread as an apology, and wants to split it between the three of them just like they always do. They talk so naturally and stay completely in sync, just like nothing has ever changed. Tsubaki simply sits there, quietly watching the same scene happen all over again. Then, without warning, he stands up. He tells them that today they should split the bread in half instead of 3 ways. Both Himawari and Auta are instantly confused. Before either of them can say anything, Tsubaki turns around and walks away, saying he'll eat alone. They can only stand there watching him leave and wondering what suddenly came over him. As Tsubaki walks away, he tries to convince himself that he's finally done with all of this. He's tried everything. He's changed his actions, changed his choices, and even tried forcing Himawari and Auta together. Nothing worked. The loop never ended. Instead, every attempt only made things more painful. At this point, Tsubaki starts thinking that maybe doing nothing is the only option he has left. Back in class, the quiz results are announced, and of course, Tsubaki gets full marks again. This is his 13th loop. Man is grinding the same week like it's a speed run. But then, something finally changes. Himawari and Auta suddenly start arguing in the middle of school. It's loud, messy, and completely different from anything Tsubaki has seen before. Everyone around them is shocked. Tsubaki quickly rushes over to stop them, completely confused because this has never happened in any previous loop. Then he realizes the reason. The only thing he did differently today was leave them alone during lunch. Himawari and Auta start blaming each other while also questioning Tsubaki. Why did he suddenly leave? Why would he break their usual routine unless something was wrong? The argument continues to grow, and neither of them is willing to back down. That's when Tsubaki finally understands. This is all because of him. The moment he stepped away, everything between them started falling apart. Himawari snaps first, accusing Auta of always spending time with other people. She even says that Tsubaki must have been feeling left out. Auta immediately fires back, denying it and accusing Himawari instead. He says she's the one who always drags Tsubaki around. The argument gets heated fast. Neither of them wants to admit they're wrong. Tsubaki finally steps between them, blaming himself for everything. He even bows to both of them, apologizing again and again just to calm them down. But somehow that only makes things even more awkward. Auta backs away, still clearly frustrated, while Himawari refuses to let the argument go unless he admits that he's wrong. In the end, the two walk away in opposite directions, still angry. The students around them begin whispering, wondering if they should call a teacher. Others aren't too worried and assume they'll make up soon. Tsubaki can only sigh and hope things calm down before they all have to go home. But deep down, he already knows it won't be that easy. Later, Himawari apologizes to Tsubaki and refuses to walk home with Auta until their argument is resolved. On the other side, Auta stubbornly refuses to forgive her either. The two go their separate ways while Tsubaki walks home alone. Eventually, he sits behind the school and finally breaks down. Himawari and Auta have been together for so long, yet they've never fought like this before. And now everything has fallen apart because of him. He knows it's his fault, but at the same time, he can't keep carrying this pain forever. Then something unexpected happens. A voice suddenly calls out to him from behind. Tsubaki turns around and sees a girl climbing out through a window like she just spawned into the scene. She moves so casually that the whole situation feels almost unreal. She's calm and composed, as if she doesn't belong in this mess at all. She approaches Tsubaki and casually brings up Auta and Himawari. She even mentions that the two of them started dating. Tsubaki freezes. There's no reason a random girl should know about that. Then it hits him. This girl knows about the loop. The scene shifts as the mysterious girl casually sits in front of Tsubaki and sips her drink like she owns the place. Tsubaki can't stop staring at her, his mind racing. Maybe she's like him. Maybe she's someone who can remember the different loops. Meanwhile, she notices his intense stare and starts teasing him, pretending to feel shy. That only makes Tsubaki even more nervous. Trying to recover, he asks who she is. She looks surprised that he doesn't recognize her. After some playful back and forth, she finally introduces herself as Kaidoi from Class 3B and tells him to remember her properly. That immediately clicks for Tsubaki. She's in the same class as Himawari, so technically there's nothing strange about her knowing who he is. Still, something about her doesn't feel right. She continues watching him with an amused smile and even calls him an oddball, just like the rumors say. Tsubaki is confused, but Kaidoi casually explains that people often ask about her unusual name. She doesn't seem bothered by it at all. Even so, Tsubaki finds her difficult to understand. She doesn't seem like a bad person. She's just incredibly hard to keep up with. And the moment he thinks that, Kaidoi suddenly says exactly what was on his mind. Direct hit. She just read his thoughts like they were written on his face. Kaidoi laughs at his reaction, clearly enjoying herself. Tsubaki starts wondering if she's simply playing with him. Then, with a calm smile, she tells him to go ahead and ask what he really wants to know this time. Kaidoi laughs and teases him for starting with a thank you, even admitting that she kind of likes that about him. That catches Tsubaki completely off guard. She's playful, unpredictable, and far too comfortable around him. Still, Tsubaki gathers himself and finally asks the question that matters. Does she remember things happening differently? In his mind, everything starts connecting. If Kaidoi remembers even a little, then maybe she's trapped in the loop too. And if that's true, maybe he won't have to face it alone. For the first time in a long while, Tsubaki feels a small sense of hope. Maybe the two of them can figure out how to escape together. But Kaidoi's answer immediately crushes that idea. She doesn't actually remember anything clearly. She only has vague feelings that certain things may have happened before. Nothing specific. Nothing reliable. Tsubaki quickly understands the difference between them. He remembers every loop perfectly. Kaidoi only has faint fragments. That means she probably isn't the key to breaking the loop, and he can't completely depend on her. Still, Kaidoi isn't clueless. She immediately notices Tsubaki's reaction and points out that what he knows goes far beyond a simple guess. She's already figured out that he understands much more than he's admitting. Even after that, she continues sticking around. The next day, Kaidoi calls out to Tsubaki again, acting like they've already become close. She drags him along for tea with the same teasing smile. Tsubaki has no idea whether she simply enjoys messing with him, but she keeps showing up over and over. He tries to shut the conversation down, saying there's nothing left to discuss. But Kaidoi refuses to back off. Instead, she presses him, saying there are still things she wants to talk about because he clearly understands what her vague memories mean. Before Tsubaki can escape, she grabs him and pulls him along once again. Meanwhile, Himawari and Ota quietly watch them from a distance. The two look surprisingly close. Even Himawari finds it strange, because Tsubaki rarely spends time with anyone outside their trio. But Ota's expression immediately darkens. Before anyone can react, Ota suddenly dashes straight toward them, leaving Himawari standing there in shock. Meanwhile, Kaidoi continues teasing Tsubaki, pointing out that he clearly remembers far more than he's willing to admit. Tsubaki hesitates. He considers telling her the truth about the time loop, but quickly changes his mind. With her vague memories and unpredictable personality, revealing everything feels too risky. Instead, he starts giving her a vague explanation, hinting that she might be similar to him. But before he can finish, Ota suddenly bursts in. The timing couldn't be more perfect. Ota immediately confronts Tsubaki, clearly upset. He points out that Tsubaki and Kaidoi have been meeting every day and brings up everything that's been happening lately. Then, he makes a shocking assumption. He thinks Tsubaki has started dating Kaidoi. Tsubaki freezes. That possibility wasn't even on his radar. But what surprises him even more is Ota's reaction. Ota looks genuinely shaken, showing far more emotion than Tsubaki expected. Kaidoi notices it too and questions why Ota is reacting like that. Ota awkwardly tries to cover it up, claiming that he's only concerned because Tsubaki is his friend. But the tension in the air says otherwise. Something deeper is starting to show. And that's when Tsubaki finally realizes it. Thinking back on all the loops, he remembers how Ota always avoided relationships and constantly prioritized the three of them. Maybe it was never just about their friendship. There was something else behind it all. And as that realization sinks in, Tsubaki finally begins to understand. Ota's feelings might not be what he originally thought. Later, Tsubaki and Ota sit alone away from everyone else. This time, Tsubaki finally decides to tell him the truth. He explains everything about the loop, how he's been trapped reliving the same week over and over again. At first, Auta can't even process what he's hearing. But instead of doubting him, he quickly accepts it. He trusts Tsubaki enough to know that he wouldn't joke about something this serious. That alone shows just how strong their bond really is. Then, Auta's entire attitude changes. He grabs Tsubaki by the shoulders, finally understanding everything he's been going through. The endless loops, the pain, even his attempts to push Auta and Himawari together. He understands all of it. And Auta makes one thing very clear. Tsubaki should never force himself through something like that again. Tsubaki tries to explain that he didn't have a choice. He was simply trying different things to find a way out of the loop. But Auta isn't focused on that. Instead, he reveals what truly matters to him. He wants Tsubaki to be happy, even if that means putting Himawari's feelings second. Bro just dropped the biggest emotional plot twist. Tsubaki finally understands that Auta's feelings aren't shallow or random. They're built on years of trust, loyalty, and genuine care. Tsubaki has always been the person who pushed Auta forward, the person who supported him when he needed it most. In many ways, Tsubaki is the most important person in Auta's life. Because of that, unless something changes, Auta has no intention of dating Himawari at all. That realization hits Tsubaki hard. Everything he believed about their relationship starts falling apart. Then another thought enters his mind. What if the loop isn't random? What if it's happening because of him? Yeah, bro might actually be the source of his own suffering. Later, Tsubaki stands alone in the rain, replaying everything in his head. His heart still hasn't settled on what he truly wants, and maybe that's exactly why the loop refuses to end. Lost in thought, he doesn't even notice how soaked he's getting. Then Himawari suddenly appears, rushing toward him with an umbrella. The moment she sees him completely drenched, she panics. She grabs him immediately and doesn't even give him a chance to explain. Her concern hits Tsubaki hard, especially when their eyes meet, and he sees how genuinely worried she is. Without hesitation, Himawari takes him back to his house. Once inside, she moves around naturally, almost like she belongs there. She quickly finds a towel and hands it to him before insisting that he take a shower and warm up. While Tsubaki cleans himself up, Himawari takes over the kitchen and prepares something warm for him, as if it's the most natural thing in the world. When Tsubaki returns, he finds her smiling brightly. The room feels warm, peaceful, and safe. She tells him to wait a little longer while she finishes cooking, still fussing over him. Tsubaki simply watches her. Moments like this mean everything to him. He sincerely thanks her, realizing once again how much she has always taken care of him. Himawari brushes it off, but it's obvious that she was genuinely worried about him. And in that quiet moment, Tsubaki's feelings become clear again. He still loves her. He brings up Auta, wondering if she wants to know what they talked about. But Himawari immediately shuts the topic down. Right now, she's only concerned about Tsubaki. That's just who she is. Up close, she looks small and gentle, but Tsubaki knows how strong she really is. She's the kind of person who gives everything she has to the people she cares about. Then, as Himawari turns to say something, her foot suddenly slips. Before she can fall, Tsubaki catches her. Perfect timing. Bro really pulled off a low-budget hero moment out of nowhere. Himawari thanks him, but Tsubaki doesn't let go. Instead, he holds her a little tighter, relieved that she's okay. Without thinking, he lets his feelings slip out, treating her like someone truly precious. The words hit Himawari immediately. She panics, her face turning bright red. She can't even look at him properly. Her ears burn, her voice shakes, and she's completely overwhelmed. She's not surviving this moment. Even then, Tsubaki doesn't pull away. He quietly asks if they can stay like this for just a little longer. After a shy pause, Himawari agrees, although she tells him not to look at her face. For Tsubaki, that's enough. His heart starts racing. Seeing Himawari react like this, getting so flustered even around him, makes him incredibly happy. Then Ota's words echo in his mind. He wants Tsubaki to be happy. And suddenly, something changes. For the first time, everything becomes clear. The answer was never about running away. It was about facing his feelings and finally being honest with himself. That's what breaks the loop. Himawari looks up at him, confused, trying to see his face. Tsubaki stands there with a calm heart for the first time because he's finally made his decision. No more holding back. No more running away. He's going to confess to the girl he treasures most, the girl he truly loves. After suffering through 12 loops, Tsubaki is finally going to choose his own path. The scene then flashes back to an earlier conversation between Tsubaki and Ota. Tsubaki had already revealed his decision to confess to Himawari. Ota looks confused at first, wondering why Tsubaki even felt the need to tell him. But Tsubaki makes it clear that this isn't some random confession. To him, it's about principle and something much deeper. This isn't simply a confession. It's a challenge, not directly against Ota, but against the version of himself that Himawari has fallen in love with. Bro basically just declared war on the entire emotional lore. Ota initially brushes it off and calls it pointless, but Tsubaki doesn't back down. He's already made up his mind. Win or lose, he's going all in. Seeing how determined Tsubaki is, Ota finally stops arguing and decides to support him instead. He tells Tsubaki not to overthink everything so much. Then Ota casually says something that hits harder than expected. Tsubaki can simply try again as many times as he wants. It's almost like having a cheat code. And that's when it finally clicks. This loop isn't only a curse. It can also be an advantage. Tsubaki doesn't have to rush. He can make mistakes, learn from them, and try again. Later, Tsubaki walks home with Himawari. The mood is calm as they talk about Ota spending time with his other friends and how things might change in the future. They'll eventually go to different schools, follow different paths, and may slowly drift apart. That thought hangs heavily between them. Trying to lighten the mood, Tsubaki brings up their earlier argument. Himawari immediately gets flustered and lightly hits him while he laughs it off. The tension slowly disappears. But inside Tsubaki's mind, yesterday's moment keeps replaying. Her blushing, her reactions, the way she looked at him. Maybe, just maybe, he still has a chance. Even with Ota standing between them, Tsubaki decides he's done holding back. He takes Himawari's hand and pulls her closer. His heart is racing, but this time, he's steady. There's no hesitation, no backup plan. Even if he fails, he can always try again. With that thought in mind, Tsubaki finally confesses everything he's been keeping inside. Himawari's face turns bright red, and her eyes fill with emotion. Then she bows her head and starts apologizing, again and again. Tsubaki's entire world seems to crack in that moment. He wasn't expecting a guaranteed victory, but he still wasn't prepared for how much rejection would hurt. Himawari struggles to explain herself through her emotions. She doesn't hate him, not even close. In fact, hearing how he truly feels makes her happy. And somehow, that makes everything even harder. If his confession made her happy, then why can't she accept him? For the first time, Tsubaki isn't thinking about the loop. He's not thinking about retrying or planning his next attempt. This isn't a strategy anymore. This is real. And before he can stop himself, one question slips out. Does it have to be Ota? Himawari finally breaks down. She admits that Tsubaki already knew how she felt about Ota. She realizes that while she thought she understood Tsubaki, she never truly faced his feelings. She was so focused on her own emotions that she completely overlooked what he had been feeling all this time. And she can't forgive herself for that. Even after everything they've shared as childhood friends, she admits that she never truly saw Tsubaki in that way. Because of that, she can't become his girlfriend. Her eyes fill with tears as her voice begins to shake. Then she turns around and runs away, leaving Tsubaki standing there alone. He doesn't know what to say. For a while, his mind goes completely blank. Even after that, Himawari struggles to face him for the rest of the loop. The distance between them says everything. But eventually, Tsubaki forces himself to stand back up. He remembers the one advantage he has. Everything that just happened, the rejection, the mistakes, the painful moments, is information now. It's something he can learn from. So he tells himself to go back to May 7th and try again. This time, he'll do it better. And then again, morning arrives. The alarm rings with the same familiar sound. The same day begins. But this time, Tsubaki wakes up with a purpose. The morning he once hated now feels like another opportunity. He turns off the alarm and looks at an old childhood photo of himself, Himawari, and Ota on his phone. The next day feels completely different. Tsubaki steps outside as birds chirp around him, as if nothing has happened. But his chest feels heavy, still carrying the weight of yesterday. The rejection continues echoing in his mind. And now it's May 14th. This isn't the reset he wanted. It's the aftermath he has to face. Tsubaki heads to school, already planning to avoid Himawari if he can. But of course, fate has other plans. She spots him almost immediately and rushes over, apologizing before he can even react. The two of them freeze in place. They're both awkward and guilty, neither knowing how to look at the other. Bro really asked for a fresh start and got hit with emotional damage instead. Trying to escape the awkward situation, Tsubaki goes looking for Auta.
Hey guys, sorry for mid-editing, but I noticed a lot of you are watching my videos without subscribing. Our subscribe ratio is literally close to 0. I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Thanks. Now, back to the recap.
But for some reason, Auta is nowhere to be found. Tsubaki checks once. Then again. Still nothing. He quickly figures out what might be happening. Auta probably heard about the confession and is keeping his distance out of consideration for him. Somehow, that hurts even more. And then Tsubaki realizes something. He's completely alone. Desperate, he tries one last option and calls for Kaidoi. But when she arrives, something feels completely wrong. She acts as though they've never met before. There's no memory of their previous conversations. No teasing. Nothing. She's simply distant and treats him like any other classmate. That's when it truly sinks in. Even his one possible ally in the loop has been reset. At this point, reality begins closing in around him. This is the timeline where he confessed and failed. Himawari is keeping her distance. Auta has disappeared. And everything that once felt natural between the three of them has started falling apart. The future they talked about, different schools, different paths, and slowly drifting apart now feels unavoidable. Worst of all, Tsubaki still hasn't accepted the rejection. If this timeline is hell, and the loop itself is hell, then he'd rather go back. Desperate and running out of hope, Tsubaki starts thinking about the usual time loop stories. Maybe there's some way to force another reset. He makes a dangerous attempt to trigger one, but nothing happens. Instead, he ends up needing medical attention and gets a serious lecture from the adults around him. There is no reset, no miracle. Nothing. Even after that, Tsubaki keeps searching for another way back. But nothing works. The days continue passing, and reality refuses to reset. It simply keeps moving forward, dragging him along with it. Eventually, Tsubaki breaks down. Sitting alone at night and staring at his phone, he finally faces the truth he has been avoiding. There's no escape, no reset waiting for him, no guaranteed second chance. Tomorrow is coming, and he has to live with everything that happened. The next morning arrives as usual. Still half asleep, Tsubaki grabs his phone out of habit. Then he freezes. May 14th, 7 a.m. The same day. His mind goes blank for a moment before everything comes rushing back. This isn't just another loop. It's the worst possible one. The day after his failed confession. Bro escaped the loop just to get dragged back into the boss fight again. And now the realization hits harder than ever. This isn't random. Tsubaki sits on his bed, replaying everything in his head. He remembers confessing. He remembers being rejected. He remembers thinking that it was finally over. But now it's May 14th again. The same morning. The same starting point. His chest tightens for a moment, but he quickly forces himself to calm down. Thinking about why this is happening won't help. Panicking will only waste time. He tells himself to focus. If the loop is restarted, then the only thing that matters now is what he does differently this time. At school, Tsubaki waits for Auta, already knowing what his first move needs to be. During the previous loop, Auta never contacted him. And now Tsubaki understands why. Everything has to start with Auta. If he simply repeats the same actions, nothing will change. But when Auta finally arrives, something feels different. He looks a little down and unusually distant. As soon as they start talking, the misunderstanding becomes clear. Auta thought Tsubaki had succeeded. He believed Tsubaki and Himawari had gotten together, so he purposely kept his distance. When Tsubaki reveals that he actually got rejected, Auta is completely shocked. In his mind, that outcome never even existed. He was already convinced that Tsubaki would win. Bro had 100% confidence in him. Unfortunately, reality said, nope. Auta becomes frustrated, almost angry, and looks ready to confront Himawari as if this were some mistake that needed to be fixed. But Tsubaki stops him. Instead of letting Auta leave, Tsubaki asks him something much deeper. It's a question that's been sitting in his heart for a long time. Why does someone like Ota, talented, admired, and seemingly perfect, keep believing in someone like Tsubaki, who feels like he has nothing special about him? For a moment, everything goes quiet. The question hits Ota harder than expected. He lets out a breath and looks at Tsubaki as if he can't believe what he's hearing. Then he tells him the truth. The person Ota has become today exists because of Tsubaki. Back when they were younger, Ota was weak, cried easily, and struggled with almost everything. But Tsubaki stayed beside him. He pushed Ota forward, encouraged him, and taught him step by step. Hearing this, Tsubaki freezes. He never thought about their relationship that way. But when he looks back, he realizes Ota is right. Tsubaki always noticed how kind and genuine Ota was. He believed that Ota had the potential to become someone amazing. And now, that belief has become reality. But Ota isn't finished. He admits something even more important. He already knew that Himawari liked him. However, from his perspective, the version of himself that Himawari admires only exists because of Tsubaki, which means everything eventually comes back to him. Those words hit Tsubaki deeply. He stays quiet, unable to respond. For the first time, he's being forced to see himself through someone else's eyes. Meanwhile, things become even stranger. In class, Himawari runs into Kaidoi expecting a normal conversation. Instead, Kaidoi casually says something completely unexpected. She talks as if everything has already been decided. According to her, Tsubaki is simply the person who brought Himawari and Ota together, and Himawari is already dating Ota. Himawari freezes. That's not what happened. Not in her reality. This can only mean one thing. Kaidoi remembers a completely different version of events. The timeline really decided to randomize the settings and hit shuffle. Himawari's mind practically stops working. The idea of Ota being her boyfriend suddenly comes out of nowhere, and she starts blushing from pure confusion. It makes absolutely no sense. No one told her this, and things never happened that way. Yet Kaidoi talks about it so naturally that it doesn't even sound like she's lying. Himawari starts panicking. None of this matches what she remembers. Still, Kaidoi seems completely serious. So Himawari grabs onto her and asks her to explain everything. Kaidoi goes through the details one by one, but somehow that only makes things more confusing. Their memories don't match. Their stories are completely different. It's almost as if they're remembering two separate worlds. That thought shakes Himawari. She starts thinking about Tsubaki, how everything turned out, and how she can't even properly face him anymore. Then Kaidoi casually says something that hits even deeper. From her perspective, Himawari was never truly looking at Ota. She was looking at the version of Ota that Tsubaki helped create. Which means, in a way, her feelings for Ota have always been connected to Tsubaki. Himawari is left completely speechless. At the same time, Tsubaki sits alone, trying to process everything Ota told him. He leans back, exhausted, still struggling to accept it. Ota sees him as someone incredibly important, someone who helped guide him forward. But Tsubaki has never viewed himself that way. Still, a small part of him begins to wonder if Ota's perspective could be the key to understanding the loop. Before he can think any further, Kaidoi suddenly appears again. It's almost like she has a radar for him. She greets Tsubaki casually, but her eyes are sharp. She watches him closely and starts testing him with small details. His answers immediately confirm her suspicion. Then, she slowly steps closer until she's standing directly in front of him, wearing that same teasing smile. From Kaidoi's point of view, this should be their first real meeting. But Tsubaki is acting like they've already known each other for a long time. So she turns the question back on him. Something about him clearly isn't normal. Kaidoi tilts her head and studies him carefully. She points out that he feels different from everyone else and even hints that she might be similar to him in some way. Then she suddenly closes the distance. She openly admits that she's interested in him and asks him to explain what's really happening. Finally, she quietly suggests the possibility that they're both trapped in a loop. Tsubaki finally nods. Everything clicks. Kaidoi's eyes widen as the realization settles in. Tsubaki explains everything properly this time. They're both experiencing the same strange phenomenon, but not in exactly the same way. Tsubaki remembers everything clearly. Every event, every mistake, every painful moment. Kaidoi's memories, however, are blurry. They're more like scattered fragments that never fully stayed with her. Even their loops aren't perfectly synchronized. Kaidoi processes all of this surprisingly quickly, almost as if she's been waiting for Tsubaki to confirm her suspicions. Instead of panicking, she actually looks excited. Then she grabs Tsubaki's hand without hesitation. For the first time, Tsubaki has someone who truly understands what he's going through. Someone standing on the same side as him in this strange situation. Tsubaki immediately becomes flustered when Kaidoi holds his hand. He's definitely not prepared for this level of closeness. But Kaidoi doesn't back away. She points out that Tsubaki has been struggling alone this entire time. He's tried countless approaches, changed his actions, and even pushed his two closest friends together just to find a way out. And judging by his expression, she already knows the truth. It hurt him more than anything. Tsubaki quietly admits it. Kaidoi gives him a gentle smile. That's exactly why companions exist, she tells him. There's a limit to how much someone can handle alone. Her memories may be unclear, and she may not have experienced the same pain Tsubaki has, but she still wants the same thing. She wants to escape this loop. Together, Tsubaki starts to respond, thinking Kaidoi means they should work together to find a solution. But before he can finish, she suddenly pulls him closer, completely closing the distance between them. Then she asks him if he wants to try dating her. Bro came looking for help and accidentally unlocked a whole new route. Tsubaki is completely caught off guard. His face starts heating up as Kaidoi pushes things forward without the slightest hesitation. Her playful energy is overwhelming, and her words come so quickly that his brain can't keep up. She notices his reaction and laughs, clearly amused by how lost he looks and how he has no idea how the conversation even reached this point. Then, she points out the obvious. Tsubaki got rejected. Deep down, he wants to return to the moment before that happened. He can't deny it. And that becomes enough reason for Kaidoi to suggest something completely unexpected. If they want to escape the loop, they need to try things they normally wouldn't do. Tsubaki questions her logic, but Kaidoi easily turns the question back on him. They don't understand the rules of the loop. So the only option left is trial and error. That means making choices that might seem strange, reckless, or completely unexpected. Her tone suddenly softens, almost teasingly, but with a hint of vulnerability, she asks if Tsubaki simply doesn't want someone like her. That catches him off guard. He quickly denies it and awkwardly admits that he actually thinks she's attractive. Kaidoi laughs at his stiff response. But instead of simply teasing him, she explains why she's interested in him. To her, Tsubaki isn't plain or ordinary at all. He's different. He can keep up with her unpredictable personality, something nobody else seems able to do. And that makes her happy. Over time, that happiness has started turning into something more genuine. Her words hit Tsubaki harder than he expects. No one has ever described him like that before. For once, he isn't being compared to Ota. For once, someone is looking directly at him. Kaidoi reaches for his hand and makes the decision herself. If doing nothing changes nothing, then they have to move forward. Tsubaki hesitates for only a moment before agreeing. Even if it feels uncertain, and even if it might fail, standing still guarantees nothing. So the two of them start walking together. Kaidoi keeps a firm grip on his hand, almost as if she's making sure he doesn't change his mind. She cheerfully declares that their relationship has officially begun, while Tsubaki can barely keep up with how quickly his life has changed. But they're not alone. From a distance, Himawari watches everything. She sees Tsubaki walking beside another girl, closer to her than she's ever seen him with anyone else. Himawari reminds herself that she has no right to feel upset. She's the one who rejected him. Even so, her chest suddenly feels tight. A strange heaviness settles inside her, and no matter how hard she tries, she can't figure out why she feels this way.
Please!
Subscribe.
I need this! My mom is kind of homeless.